This video is made possible by our sponsors, HAA. We'd like to thank HAA for all their support and tell you to go to HAA.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional, discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by Composer Joy Ngiaw, whose work includes the Netflix series Glamorous, Rescued by Ruby, and the Apple TV Plus short Blush. Welcome to the show, Joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I guess because I would love to talk about Blush versus Glamorous because they're polar opposites in terms of the sound.
Yeah.
But my first question for you, like, if you had to describe your sound, how would you describe it?
So I think the beauty of being a film composer, someone in the supportive role of the story, is whatever piece of music or the art that I put out is to support the vision of the director and to support the story. So Blush and Glamorous are both extremely different. The message that the director wants to give is completely different. And I guess my sound is whatever can help bring out the heart of whatever story that the director wants to say. And I would try my best to create a sound palette that's geared towards that story.
I've been a camera person for 30 years, and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France, and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
Well, so how did, I guess, starting with Blush, how did you get involved with this short? Because it feels very much like a Pixar setup, like Apple's gonna do their own Pixar with Skydance.
Yeah, the Skydance, media has been putting so much incredible live action films, and they started this animation department with a lot of veterans from Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney, and I was very lucky to be involved because I had a short film that I composed in Disney. It's a part of the Short Circuit series on Disney Plus, and someone from Disney, from that team, had moved to Skydance and remembered that short, and that short is called Jing Hua, which is a film also about grief and loss, which is what Blush is about. And he said, actually, I really like your reel for that. Would you be interested in pitching for our first short film? It's a very personal story to our director that deals with grief, but also love and hope. And I feel like you might be, suitable for that. And I, of course, jumped on that opportunity. And the whole pitching process was really, really fun because it was during the pandemic and it was all through Zoom. But it just shows the impact of storytelling, because even when I first got brought on board, it was storyboards. And even with just still storyboards, the message and the story was able to translate so meaningfully and so impactfully. And I started to write themes for that, knowing the director's story, that this is about him and his wife, who he lost through breast cancer. It was just about me really keeping his story in heart and what the message he wants to convey, and start building a sound palette based off what he was describing.
So what because I've seen it, so how would you describe the sound palette for Blush?
Yeah, so an important theme that he wanted the film to convey was how family is, our loved ones is like our oxygen, because when our character has, spoiler, lost his his wife, his alien in the short film, he had a panic attack and he couldn't breathe. And that was actually something that happened to my director. He said when he lost his wife, he didn't know what to do, and he had a panic attack. And how he got through that was remembering that, oh, I have my daughters here, I have my loved ones close, and I'm able to, as much as it hurts, I'm able to move on with hope because I still have a purpose here because of the support of my family. So I was so moved by his story that I wanted to play with the idea of oxygen and air. So the foundation of the score is very orchestral, and I featured solo piano as the basis of home, because I feel like in a lot of people's home, we grew up with a piano at home. But to play with the idea of oxygen, I started to add some of my vocals and breath elements in it. And whenever that element enters, it's very intentional, where when he first loses his wife, he lost air. So the air elements would not be part of the score. But when he feels like he's able to move on with hope again, the air element comes back. So it's a lot of, sorry, apologies for my webcam, I said that. It's a lot of experimenting with these elements to humanize things, but also serves a purpose in the story.
So like, because what I noticed in it is that there's no music up until she arrives.
Yeah.
So does the air go throughout once she arrives, or does it just sort of happen at the end there?
Yeah, it does. So when she turns around, actually, there was like I added this breath element to it, signifying kind of love at first sight, but also to him that was representative of how he has fallen in love and like found his purpose. And actually, a fun caveat is that actually did happen to my director in real life. He said he met her in high school, and the first moment he first heard her through her laugh, but when she turned around, she did blush, and he just never forgot that moment of her. Marianne turned around and started blushing, and he thought, oh, is it because of me? But actually ended up being she just blushes in general. So it was just so sweet. Like our director Joe has such a huge heart and really vulnerably and bravely tell the story, that he put a lot of thought into the significance of this story. And so it was very moving, and I felt it was very important to honor that as much as possible.
Now, when I went to your website, you show the recording of the Skydance opening.
Yeah.
Piece. Now, because that was done with a full orchestra, so were you able to do a full orchestra for the whole 10 minutes, or was it just the intro for the animation company?
Oh, we did. We were very lucky because this whole process was done during the pandemic when there was lockdown and everything, and there wasn't much scoring sessions going on. When we wrapped up the film, it was when things started to loosen up a little bit. There was still a lot of COVID protocol, but we were able to record, I think, a 60-piece orchestra at Fox Studios, the Newman scoring stage, which was extremely lucky. And actually that day was the first day we ever met in person, because all the meetings was through Zoom. So it was such a special moment for the whole team. And again, that shows like his, our incredible director Joe's leadership, because he wanted to spread love and hope throughout this whole, filmmaking process. And how cool it was, I mean, not cool, but like the timing of it is kind of, it gives me goosebumps, because it was during the time where everyone has to isolate. We were all, the world was kind of uncertain and we weren't sure, but because we had this film to work on that spread on hope and love, I feel that really brought the whole team together. So everyone was very much like a family, like a team, and it all comes down from leadership.
So one of my questions then is, like, when you're composing and you're gonna go to like a live orchestra as opposed to using synths and what have you, do you have a say in where you record? Like, because I think about, I'm in Toronto, and Massey Hall's renowned for its quality and sound, or the COC, or Carnegie Hall in New York. So when you're picking a space, like, are you allowed to choose, or do you sort of get what you get?
They do run it by me, but I from so many classic scores were recorded at that studio, and I was just very honored to even be able to have that moment for the film, and also my first score ever recorded there. So I was certainly extremely happy and just honored immediately that I'm like, yeah, I'm on board.
Well, what were some of the challenges in Blush?
In Blush, I think because I care so much about whatever film that I get brought on, and because I knew this was such a personal story, and at that moment, I didn't have that much experience yet, to be honest. When I got brought onto this film, I did a couple of shorts or indie films here and there, but to me, this was like a big moment where not only this is the first film that this studio is putting out, it was also such a personal story, and I grew to really care for Joe and his family. He introduced me to his daughters, and I felt a lot of pressure to whatever and this is all in my head, like, because I really care, so I think a lot, and I'm like, no matter what I do, I really need to, oh, my camera's back, I really need to put in my all, and I want to do this film. I want to honor Marianne, I want to honor this family, I want to honor the studio. And so it was just a lot of mental work that I had to do to silence my doubt and silence my pressure, because what's important ultimately is to I put in my all, I put in my heart, just like how everyone is in the team, and I just have to trust that it will show. And the whole team created such a supportive environment. They didn't make me feel that, oh, she's a new composer or whatever. They treated me as, she's our composer. We believe in her. We know she would, we trust her sound. And I think I felt really respected as an artist. So it was just about me overcoming my self-doubt in my head. And I think it's just because I care a lot.
So, like, when you're starting a project like this, like, how do you start? What's your creative process, I guess, which is a terrible question, but like, how do you figure out, like, okay, well, I'm going to start here, what have you?
To me, the very important step in this whole process is to talk and to understand and be curious of the story and why the filmmaker wants to tell this film. So to me, the meet and greet is extremely important. Like, before I even start composing, like, I really value the conversations we have, the exchange, and it's basically kind of it's my time to do research, because to know the story really well and to really know the message that the film wants to convey, it acts as the backbone to every single thing that I do, whether it's choosing instrumentation or melodies, or choosing which point, like you said, like which point the score comes in and which it comes out. Like, all of these is very crucial to know first what is the message. So because I had those conversations with Joe and the team, and he was explaining to me his how he met his wife in real life and why he wants to make this film, then it was just from there we could start a conversation. Okay, so if we want to signify how important that moment was when you first met your wife and she turned around and she blushed, and how sweet and innocent pure love is, then I think the music should come in there, because then it kind of signifies, wow, because like life is starting then, like, because I met someone that, falling in love at first sight. That's when things start happening for our character. And to be able to know that, we first have to understand, what our characters are feeling, what is the message, and what is the why. So to me, that's my creative process. I first have to understand that first. And then from there, that's when the conversations start and ideas start to flow. And each film has its own unique qualities, which is how we build different sound palettes for different films.
So, like, I want to jump to Glamorous, and I think they're so polar opposite in terms of,
Yeah.
you've been talking about the director of Blush and it being such a personal story, and this one's not a personal story. It is very much like a Devil Wears Prada type of show, but it is the lead actor, I can't remember her name, Miss something.
Miss Annie, yeah.
Yeah, it's like sort of her transition from YouTube into actually into series. So it's also sort of an interesting personal journey. So how would you describe the sound of Glamorous?
Yeah, I mean, Glamorous is such a special show because it's a comedy, but it touches on so many important themes like gender identity and inclusivity. It shows a wide range of the LGBTQ plus experience. Each character, has his own storyline. They are humanized. They have their own space to exist and breathe, whether it's one character has a storyline about, the work environment, or one character has explores the relationship between parent and the character, or like love interest, romance. Like it's a chance for the music to kind of humanize all of these experiences and also showcase everyone's personality. So for this show, how I started was I first listened to a lot of the music that I tried to envision what the characters would like to listen to, and the filmmakers had a lot of keywords like, oh, we want it to be trendy and sexy and intriguing and modern, and then here are some of the artists that we like Little Mix or Christina Aguilera, something like that. It's like, so I start to like think about what would Marco, our character, like to listen to, and how I can have a score that represents, along with the soundtrack that our amazing music supervisor put together, Liza Richardson. It was just about setting the tone and bringing the audience right there with our characters. So if it's a comedy score or if it's an emotional score, that it's just, for me, it's like bringing all these contemporary elements into that score, while showing this range and humanizing everybody in the film. So that was really fun. It was a really fun opportunity for me because it is a departure from my usual like orchestral scoring. It was a chance for me to explore with more sound design and contemporary elements, beats, kind of thing.
So are you, when someone says they want it to be like trendy, because I feel like the other stuff I've seen of yours is very leans towards like a timeless sort of feel, like Blush being a great example. It's like an orchestra and it could be pulled out of that, and I could see editors using that as sort of backing plate to temp score. But like, if someone says trendy, do you worry about like it aging poorly, or is there a way of doing trendy without it aging?
I think I'm not too worried about that because my if we watch like a 80s film right now, and the pop music then is different than the pop music now, but it was relevant to that time. So if I'm writing a score right now to these characters at this specific moment, maybe 20 years later, they might be like, oh, that's a bit, aging. But to me, it doesn't, it's important for me to serve accurately the story. So I'm thinking about what are some pop music that the characters like to listen to now. At the moment, there's a lot of like guitar, bass, beats, like sound design kind of thing. So, and I was being mindful of that, but also trying to add some of my own flair to it, I guess. So I still use some orchestral elements like strings or harps or piano, but the difference is now I'm thinking more like, okay, so what can I do to manipulate the sound slightly to add a bit of a pop flair to it? So whether that's like adding plugins to like vocals or adding plugins to harp to make it not sound so traditional, orchestra harp, but then kind of like, oh, it sounds like a harp, but also there's a little bit of a modern flair to it. So it was a chance for me to experiment and I was very grateful for my showrunners who were very just supportive of all the musical choices that I did, as long as it served the story. So it all comes down to that at the end.
Now, I also noticed when I was going through your credits that it lists you as also a voice in the music.
Oh, yeah.
What did you sing on a track that I just
Yeah.
didn't catch, or?
Yeah, I did. It's fun because I think because of Blush, it really ignited. I'm a classical piano player since I was young. I like to sing, but I never professionally learned how to sing. But because of Blush, it really ignited a curiosity in me to experiment with sound, because our voice is our instrument. And I can, no matter if it's a singing tonally, but I can also make weird sounds with my mouth and sample it and then turn it into an instrument of its own. So I've been really interested in exploring that side. So in Glamorous, I did use some vocals to do some sweetening effects, or to create some dreamy effects, especially for our main character Madeline, who Kim Cattrall plays. What is something that, you know, she loves modeling. She is a girl boss, but she also has, you know, she used to be a model, and she loved that. She loved the glamour. She loved the feeling of owning your own beauty and being yourself. So I was like, okay, maybe I can add some of female vocals into her theme and stuff like that. So I did try to experiment with that. It also adds like a human touch anyway.
So now, you know, you mentioned that you studied classical piano.
Yeah.
Is there I like asking this of people in areas that I'm not an expert in. So is there a classical composer that might not be well known? Because, you know, like everyone knows about Beethoven and Mozart, but is there a classical composer that you're like, people should check out this person's work?
I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I'm a big fan of the impressionistic era, and I love the art, I love the music, and I really just love Debussy's music, Ravel. I'm sure a lot of pianists know this, but I just love that when you play their piece, it's really open to interpretation. Like, at least that's how I interpret it. I'm sure some of the classical conservatories might think otherwise, but I really just love their color palettes and their interesting scales and interesting chords that they make, and something that doesn't sound like it's supposed to be together, but they add it together and it just creates this beauty. I'm very intrigued by that. So I was very highly influenced by their music. I feel like when I was younger, instead of practicing Beethoven and Mozart, I much more rather play impressionistic piano music.
Now, you refer to like their music, like the colors in their music. Like, how do you describe that to someone? Like, understanding, like what colors correspond with what?
I really, and that's the fun part too, is like everyone has different interpretation. That's just like when you look at a piece of art, you know, some people might, it might evoke a certain emotion from someone, but the other person might not resonate. And at least how I perceived it, even sometimes when things are dissonant or things are clashing, but if it's somehow, it evokes a kind of beauty. It's like I don't know how to describe it. You might think I'm crazy, but it's just more like there's a beauty in like dissonance. There's a beauty in like things that are not supposed to be together, yet when you suddenly touch it and then come back and suddenly touch it and come back, it kind of like it feels like it's going this way as opposed to like being flat. I don't know. I'm not really good at explaining it, but that's how I perceive it. Like sometimes when I listen to a piece of music and it goes somewhere totally unexpected, but then it comes back, it kind of evokes a little, it brings my attention, and it, to me, it's like it's beautiful when colors are meshed together. They're not just one singular piece.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining well. Yeah.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
So difficult. I'm still a child at heart. I still watch, you know, the 90s like Disney films. Like I still watch Lion King, Mulan, like for fun, just and on my own pleasure, even though I know exactly what's gonna happen in those films. I still love to watch it. It makes me really, really happy. It brings me back to, I still cry at Lion King, like even as an adult. It's just, it reminds me of a really nostalgic and simpler time. And I'm also really fascinated by that emotion, just because nostalgia in itself is also kind of like, to me, like that color that I was describing, where you're happy, you're sad that it's over, but also happy that it happened. So that's like that in between feeling. And to me, those films translate that. Also like Ghibli films, like, you know, the all the Miyazaki films. I love Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, House Moving Castle. Like those are also my guilty pleasures as well. I just love that in between complex feeling that you get even as an adult. Yeah.
Well, now you've worked at Skydance and at Disney Animation. You just need to knock off Pixar and Ghibli, and you've got all the major houses.
Oh my God, like that would be, yeah, that would be just insane. I can't even imagine. I mean, I just have so much respect for the art of animation. In anything, like the storytellers, the animators, the colorists, the lighting department. Like it's like everybody, it's like has to create something from nothing, you know, like it's all from the imagination. And I just have such a respect for that art. And I'm super happy that more and more films are kind of advocating. Like last year, I think it was Guillermo del Toro that says like animation is not just for kids. Like it's really not. And I have such huge respect for that genre.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, and of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.